Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Nordic Sound. As always, I am your host, Jameson Foster, and today we have a very familiar face back with us today, Jonas Lorentzen of Nebala. Jonas has hit a new record as of today because he's the first guest to reach 3 times on the Nordic Sound, which is pretty fitting because he is a pretty gregarious fellow if for some reason you still have not encountered Jonas out in the wild. So Jonas is joining us here today to talk about Nebala, the things that are in progress, and what he's been up to in the meantime. So, Jonas, welcome. It is great to have you back.
Hey, Jameson. Yeah, it's great to be back, man. Absolutely. Yeah.
always a fun time with you around.
Definitely, and you too. Absolutely. Yeah. No, it's good to be back. But it's been a minute, even though it is my third time. It's been a minute,
Yep.
as the kids say.
I had a feeling you were up to something because when people are up to things, they get quiet. So
That's right.
I was not surprised at all. I was thinking to myself, Jonas is suspiciously quiet lately. I bet he's up to something. And then you emailed me a few months ago, and I was like, oh, yeah, he's up to something. Yeah.
Yeah, I am. I am up to quite a few things. Certain things I can't talk about as well, but we'll get into the things I can talk about for sure.
Awesome, hell yeah. So yeah, the main reason that we have you on today is to talk about those few things. And actually, that would be a pretty good segue because it has been a minute since you've made an appearance. And so I guess that would be a good opportunity to sort of start this conversation with Nebala's last album because you guys made quite a splash. Even this year at Midgardsblot, where you guys were nowhere in sight, there were still so many Nebala t-shirts around, right?
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So even then, right? Like it's been a bit since your album, but you have left enough of an impression on people that your t-shirt has entered into the regular t-shirt rotation for the people who attend these festivals, right? So I guess
Awesome.
we can start wherever you want. Just whatever is on your mind first in terms of like thinking back on your debut album. I don't know, anything you want to say about where it is in your memory right now, I guess.
Um, where is it in my memory right now? That's a really good question, actually. Where's the old album in my memory? It's
I like to be
almost like
artsy.
yeah, that's at the same time sort of extremely vague, but also lets the mind wander into all kinds of things, right? So I suppose that's what vagueness sometimes offers, right? Because yeah, I mean, I haven't even listened to it for a long time. It just dawns upon me.
Mhm.
I'm not one of those artists. There's some artists, they're like, okay, I've made something, it goes away. I like to revisit some of the stuff that I've done.
Mhm.
I like to go back also into like really old stuff from when I was playing indie music and that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
And just listen to where I was and where I am now and so on, because I don't have a fear of getting stuck in something or thinking, oh, I should go back to do that kind of thing. I'm a pretty
Mhm.
sort of like, the only way is through and the only way is forward, right? Kind of
Yep.
guys. So I don't really have that problem. But it just dawned upon me right now, as you said that I haven't actually listened to it for a very, very long time.
Mhm.
At least not like sort of like sat down and listened to it from from beginning to end and just
Mhm.
gone through it like that. But I'm very proud of that album still,
As you should be.
to this
Yep.
day. Thanks, man. I really am. I can when I did listen to it. This is I listened to a few songs some time back. I was listening to it with Christopher from Heilung, actually,
Mhm.
which is a little, what do they call them? A little
Little teaser.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, for something that comes later.
Yeah. Yep.
um and we were just sort of like we were going through it and sort of being a little sort of like critical with it, and so
Mhm.
on, which is good to do every once in a while. It's good to be critical with yourself. And when I was listening to it, I could feel that it did bear the sort of hallmark or whatever of being something that was made. It's not that I'm saying that there isn't that it isn't a coherent album. I do think it
Mhm.
is. I do think it is cohesive. But I can hear just in different production things and so on. I can hear that it really was made in the COVID times, right?
Yeah. So you get a
Because
little,
like
sometimes you
literally,
get a little trauma listening to it, like, oh God.
yeah, or like, oh shit, that thing I would have done completely different if I
Yeah, yeah.
had a different way of going about it. Because the way the way that it was made, I can just recap that really quickly. Was that I made the first three tracks with Sebastian Gainsborough, who is
Mhm.
one of the composers for the Northmen, and I met him on when I was doing the Northmen stuff. Um, and so I made the first three tracks with him, and then COVID hit, sort of almost immediately after, and we didn't have any opportunity to finish it, and I saw myself having to move to Norway for a while
Mhm.
to try to make ends meet because London was just kaput.
Mhm.
And then I went into the studio with a guy whose name I've actually forgotten. It's crazy. Like this
Happens.
time was so weird. This time
Yep.
was so weird. I've forgotten this man's name, and it's not to say anything bad about him, but he did his best. He really
Mhm.
did to try to understand what the hell I was trying to do. But it wasn't really his way of working. He was more of an electronic producer and so on. He had a fine studio and some good mics and so on, but it wasn't like he really knew how to record things and
Mhm.
so on in the way that I would have wanted it to.
Yep.
And then I kind of, after making sort of the rough drop for three tracks with him, that's when I realized, okay, I can't finish the album like this. It's not going to be good,
Mhm.
you know, and it's not going to at all be sort of like attached to the three tracks that I made with Sebastian,
Yep.
stylistically and sound wise and so on. So that's when I just called up Shell
Mhm.
Broughton, and was like, Shell, I'm fucked. Like I need help. And ended up making the last three tracks with him,
Mhm.
essentially, and then working on the material from this other guy, which we actually had to kind of sound replace the whole goddamn thing. So there was a lot of like just running behind yourself, trying to catch up, that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
And I think it's quite remarkable that we actually were able to make a somewhat cohesive album under those circumstances. And
Mhm.
it took I think it took 1.5 years to make that album. Not that we weren't super productive once we were in the studio, or that I wasn't when I was alone with this guy. I say alone with this guy because, yeah, I think that kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
I hope so. Because of
Yep.
course he was there, but I felt alone
Yeah.
somehow.
Yep. Yep. Understood.
Um, and when I was with Shell, it was a whole different thing. It was a very very flowy space that we were in, and Shell is obviously a guy who he doesn't do anything by any half measures. He
Yeah.
goes straight into it, and if he doesn't know how to do something, he'll work for 9 hours
Mhm.
and lose sleep and shit to do it.
You're the one that called him the Norwegian Rick Rubin, I think. I think you said that, and
Yeah.
that has stuck with me. It yeah.
I don't know. I've dug into Rick Rubin a little bit more since then. I don't know if that's accurate
Yeah,
anymore.
you said this like 2 years ago, but yeah, yeah. But
Yeah,
that has stuck with me. Like the anyway, I think that's a funny way to think about it.
yeah. No, he's a fantastic guy. He
Mhm.
really is, and he was lovely to work with, and he definitely saved that album. I think in many
Yep.
ways. I mean, his involvement in it definitely saved that album.
Mhm.
So yeah, so when I listen to it, I do get I get those memories, I get those feelings. It's, okay, here and there, this thing, definitely this part here of that song or whatever it is, definitely I get that feeling that if I'd had different circumstances, the album would have been better. But hey, I'm not
Mhm.
salty. I'm very, like I said in the beginning, proud of that album. I
Mhm.
think some really cool stuff is there. I might want to even go back and one day maybe look at it again. Maybe take some
Mhm.
of it up again and redo it. Maybe even because
Mhm.
there's some really good stuff there. Although that's should be careful with doing things like that. But maybe
Yeah.
who knows? Who knows?
Yeah, no, I mean, like,
Um,
I agree with what you said, where to the point where I have always heard that album as two halves, if that makes any
yeah,
sense. Like when I
yeah,
listen to it, I can hear two halves.
yeah,
Um, but I think that that helps a debut album in some ways, because you get two different kinds of, they're similar enough where they sound like the same album. But when I listen to the first three meaty tracks, because if I'm remembering
hmm,
correctly, I also haven't listened to it in a second. You have like the shorter like introductory piece, and then you go into like the meat of it with like Alagabia and
yeah,
those three tracks, and then after it is another half where I can tell that's the Chell half, because it's a little bit
sure,
more, pared back, a little bit more down to earth. I don't know if that's even the best way to put it, but they definitely have two different moods. But
yeah,
I think that
yeah.
that works well because you sort of get a bigger spectrum of the stuff that you're trying to do with such an ambitious project.
Yeah, you could say in a way that okay, it's like okay, this is the first album. Let's do everything I can do, and let's
Yep.
just like put that into it, and
Mm-hmm.
then yeah, exactly, yeah, yeah. That's a cool way of looking at it. I haven't really thought about it necessarily in that way, but that does
Mm-hmm.
make sense when you say it like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it also one has to always remember that maybe one can go back and say I would have done this and that differently, but you wouldn't have known that if you didn't do it in that way that you did it, in the
Mm-hmm.
first, you know and so every album is a learning experience, right? It should be. Otherwise, why the fuck would you do it?
Otherwise, you're
It
just
really,
ACDC.
yeah. Otherwise, you're
which,
just fucking ACDC.
which I love. I love ACDC, right? Like, there,
Yeah,
it's like, anyway. But the point is there. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. No, definitely. No, that's a good. Otherwise, you're just ACDC or yeah. But you can also try to reinvent yourself so much that you become Metallica, which you don't want to be.
I was literally about to say you could then be on the opposite side of the spectrum, is like every 10 years you're a different band, which also
Yeah,
brings with it its own problems. No, I
yeah.
love that you completed the circle that was that thought for me. Yeah.
Fantastic. Much obliged. Much obliged.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, but yeah, no, that's a good point. So yeah, I'm really happy with that album. I will definitely still play it live, play lots of things from it live, and so on. Maybe change some things up live next
Mm-hmm.
time I go out there. Like let's see how that goes. But that's a nice segue into what I'm doing right now, because you're
Mm-hmm.
right. I am up to something, and up to several things actually,
Mm-hmm.
that I'm really excited about. And one of those things is making a new Nebala album,
Mm-hmm.
which is the meat of it has actually already been made in some sense, or like the structures and stuff has been recorded.
Mm-hmm.
And just before you hit record, we were talking a little bit about the fire at Midgard's.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And so in that band, Clanagantia, which is the band that kind of facilitates, not this year, but has been doing it in 22 and 23, has been facilitating that fire with
Mm-hmm.
their, drums and their bagpipes and whatnot. Last year I met a guy called Gilly.
Gilly's
Uh,
great.
you remember Gilly,
he
right?
he
Cool.
has, how can I forget Gilly? He has the most Jack Black energy of any human being I've met. He has the charisma, like the anyway, that's how I remember him. But no, and I also remember
I
you
think I
posted a
think
clip
he's
of him
Jack
playing.
Black on
Yeah.
psychedelics or something like that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because you posted a clip of him playing in your that was either your studio or your home. I'm remembering that was maybe like
It
6
was a
months ago.
studio.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I remember.
that's
I'm
right.
like, oh, they're in the same room.
Yeah, yeah. It wasn't just we weren't just fucking around. We were actually recording a lot of the structures and a lot of instruments and actually in terms of like the album, all the tracks are kind of there.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of work that needs to be done on it because neither Gilly or I are producers, or we barely know how to hit record. So you know That's
Okay.
of course an exaggeration. Gilly does know
Yeah.
a few things, but not that much, and he
Mhm.
would never say that he did either. He's a musician first
Mhm.
and foremost,
Whole different skill
and
set.
I mean, he plays. I don't know how many instruments he plays
A lot.
well.
Yeah.
He plays them well.
Yep.
This is the crazy thing about him. He plays. He's incredible. He's incredible percussionist,
Hmm.
especially in West African traditions,
Hmm.
like so dunduns and djembe and that sort of thing. He's a very very good violinist.
Hmm.
He plays the bagpipes, of course, like a champ. He
Yep.
really plays well on the bagpipes. And but yeah, and then just all sorts of string instruments. Anything that can make a sound, I think he can probably play
Yeah.
to some level at least. So that was also, I mean, a great thing going into the studio with a guy like that, because we had some violins, we had an accordion, we had some different West African um, percussion stuff. We had we had a little rainbow ukulele, which actually features a lot on the album. Weirdly, well, that's because we didn't have a lyre, so we had to. This was so funny. We didn't have a lyre, and we wanted some lyre parts. And then he was like, "Wait a minute!" And then he went into a Tiger. You know the Tiger shops,
Yep.
yeah, sort of coin shops, and he bought like 100 kroner, which is, I guess, like, I don't know, $15 ukulele,
Hmm.
made in plastic, like 3D printed with the rainbows on it, and that sounds amazing. It sounds so good. So it's actually featuring on a lot of songs.
Hmm.
So yeah, that was pretty funny. Yeah, we had some flutes. We have different flutes, and we also had one guy come, a Colombian guy, who plays the shakuhachi. You know that what that is? The Japanese temple flute.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, and he builds them himself. So he has built them with more holes on them, so he can play chromatically and
Hmm.
that kind of thing. Unbelievable player,
Hmm.
like incredible, like classically trained. He can play Bach on a shakuhachi, which is
That is so cool.
incredible. Yeah, so we had him in. He was guesting on just on one track, but yes, we had lots of flutes. What else did we have? Um, Lots of bells and
Hmm.
clanky clanky stuff. And God, man, it's been a while now, but there's a
Yeah.
lot of stuff. There's
Hmm.
a lot of instruments there. And yeah, so we just went in, and I had kind of already an idea for what this album was gonna be. So I had the tracks and the themes and I had some melodies and stuff that had come to me at different times, but that was basically it. And we had 10 days to do it. And the first 3 days were just us struggling. Was just us struggling with technicalities, just
Hmm.
making shit work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sound card that blew up and all
Oh,
kinds of,
nice.
everything that could go wrong went wrong. So
Yep.
we actually did it in 7 days, and this was just to show the kind of contrast between the album that was made in COVID times, took a whole year to
Hmm.
do because of all the different things, to like two guys going into the studio and just hammering it out,
Hmm.
which I hope is going to give the feel that this is a very coherent, cohesive piece of
Hmm.
work. This is one thing, and it's meant
Yep.
to be like that.
Hmm. I really
Yeah.
admire you and I are kind of a dying breed in the sense that we like our albums being coherent. Um,
Yeah.
People don't listen to full albums anymore. Um, Not
I know it
often.
might be wasting my time, I guess,
No, no, no. But
but
no. The reason I'm saying this is because
yeah.
there's a lost art. Well, or a losing art. I don't know. I don't want to be too pessimistic about it.
No, I agree
But
with you.
you even
Absolutely.
when you look at your own analytics on how people are listening to your albums, like I see how people just like listen to one song in the middle of it and then go back to listen to like one song at the beginning, and that gives me anxiety. I'm like, how are you not listening to this whole album in one go, right? And it's I think I don't know, I just wanted to say how much I appreciate that you still are holding that much value in making an album as a coherent, cohesive experience front to back, even though a lot of people aren't going to be listening to it that way. It matters to you as an artist that you're doing that.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. And even if people are going to listen to it in a different way, hopefully it'll shine through
Hmm.
that something mattered at least.
Hmm.
It actually kind of gives me a little bit of PTSD. I'll give you a little anecdote from
Okay.
actually when after Midgard's Blood in 22, I went off the grid for like a half year. I kind of
Hmm.
burned out for lots of various reasons, which
Hmm.
we don't need to get into. But my back was completely damaged and so on.
Hmm.
So I went off to India for about half a year. And one thing I noticed up in the mountains, like a lot of these villages up there, they are now starting listening to pop music and that sort of thing, and they I don't know what it is, man. I can't figure out what it is. But there was a wedding season when we came up into the
Hmm.
mountains, which was amazing. These
Hmm.
people are so generous. We were being fed every day, like every day. But
Yep.
then when they had parties, right? Their whole stick was, let's just listen to that one bit that we like and then change it from each song. So sometimes it would be 20 fucking seconds of a song. When it goes like, like that kind of thing. And then a completely different song. We were just like, what's going on? I was just getting into the groove, and then and then there's like, just what? It was crazy. At some point, though, I have to say, it started making some kind of sense because what I realized was that they just want the cream every time. They just like it's like now we're having fun, so now we're not gonna waste our time in that middle part when he's singing about how he got really sad and something. We want to get back where he gets the girl back. We
Yep.
just want the get the girl back thing all the time. So it was bonkers. But yeah, it's strange because it feels to me like, yeah, you're right. It's a lost art with the album thing.
Hmm.
It's a lost art that I remember when growing up, when we didn't have Spotify, we didn't have those kind of things. I would go down to the library,
Hmm.
and I'd heard about this band Soundgarden or whatever, right? So I
Yep.
would see if they had Soundgarden, and then I would find Bad Motor Finger or whatever, and I would go home and I would put it on. I would listen to it from beginning to end, and then of course I
Hmm.
would have my favorite tracks. And I would go back to listen to them a few times more,
Hmm.
but I would listen to it from beginning to end,
Hmm.
you know.
I
And then
almost
I'd go,
compulsively listen that way to the point where even Alyssa's like, "Can you ever start halfway through an album?" Like, no, I refuse.
yeah, I totally get that. Because there's a point to why you make an album,
Mhm.
or at least that should be,
There
I
hopefully is.
guess.
Yeah.
Hopefully there
You're
is,
not
yeah.
doing it against
Hopefully,
your will.
no, exactly, right? I I completely agree. But hey, who knows? Maybe it might be
Mhm.
a thing that gets a kind of like a renaissance at some point, just
It'd
like
be cool.
vinyls have gotten a renaissance or that sort of thing. It's like, yeah, I really hope so. I
Yeah,
really
it'd
hope
be it'd
so.
be cool. Yeah, yeah. And I guess also while we're on that note of you talking about these more communal music experiences, even if they were kind of like listening to someone scroll through Instagram where you get like 20, like the sound changes every 20 seconds and someone has their speaker on in public. Because that's what you're reminding me of when you said that they were listening that way. But you were
Yeah, yeah.
talking about
No, but people do that, right? Yeah,
yeah,
true.
100%. They'll have the speaker on like while they're sitting on the toilet in a public restroom, and go in there to like wash your hands, and you're like, "What the fuck is going on
What
in
the
there?"
fuck is going on? Yeah.
But something you were telling me about leading up to us talking about this was you're sort of doing these singing workshops, where
Yeah.
you were trying to build singing as community, because as we're starting to segue from talking about the last album into what you're up to now, I see that you mentioned that you do this, and I would be very surprised if this wasn't also part of influencing the way you're approaching an album that you're making now. So do you want to say a little bit about this, these workshops, these community building things you are doing through singing? I'd love to hear more about them.
Yeah, sure, man. I do have some things I want to finish about the album though, but we can go back to it. Just
Oh yeah,
remind me that
I wanted
there was some.
to use it as part of like telling that story, or we could just put a pin in it for later, and
No,
you
I
can
think
finish the thoughts. Yeah.
I think it's cool. It kind of segues also into the whole giving something a renaissance. It
Okay.
kind of fits perfectly together with that because um, I was so I wanted to I've been wanting to I've been thinking a lot about the loss of people in general singing and taking part in not just listening to music but taking part in music.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I am necessarily advocating that everyone should become a musician like that
Mm-hmm.
necessarily, but singing is something everyone can do. I'm like sort of the Gusteau of music. I'd like to say, everyone can sing. You know, I mean, do you get the reference?
I did that.
Ratatouille. Everyone
Yep.
can cook.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone can sing. Okay, cool. Just wondering if I was just...
No,
Anyway.
that landed. That
Uh,
landed.
okay, good. Shit. Yeah. So I really do feel that singing is something that is completely like it's something we've forgotten, and it's a part of the human experience, I
Mm-hmm.
think. And you hear Einar Selvik talk about it all the time,
Mm-hmm.
right? I think every single time I've heard them play, he makes the same spiel
Mm-hmm.
before Helvegen about the loss of the singing tradition, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought I wanted to go and do something about that, actually, or just be one of those guys who try to do something about this. My dad does a lot, actually. He,
Mm-hmm.
in his own way, he's a musician as well, and he lives in between actually the west coast and the east coast of Denmark, and he does it in both these places where he would go to a small place. They'll advertise for it, and then it's a sing along evening,
Mm-hmm.
and then he'll have a big screen with all the lyrics, and they'll play Beatles and old Danish pop songs from the 80s and stuff that people know, right?
Mm-hmm.
People don't know the lyrics, but they have the lyrics to guide them because they know the melodies and so on. And
Mm-hmm.
so the lyrics are there to remind them. And he does this a lot, and I've always been very much proud of my dad for doing that because I think
Mm-hmm.
that's an actual activist move almost. Get
Mm-hmm.
people to sing again.
Yep.
Make singing great again. Um,
God, don't remind me. Let me escape from the States in this interview for 5 seconds.
Oh, sorry.
No, you're
Yeah,
good.
no,
You're
I
good.
actually, no, but actually, I do feel for you guys. Let's not fucking go there
Yeah,
at
no,
all.
no.
That's enough of that already.
Dude,
Holy
if
fuck.
there wasn't so much good music out right now, I I don't think I'd be surviving this other round of this. But so I'm
You're a
very appreciative.
pussy. You're a pussy, Jameson.
Yeah, let's move on.
Oh, fucking hell.
Just if I go dark in November, everyone listening will
Yeah,
know why. But
yeah,
back to
yeah.
the
Oh,
singing.
fuck.
Back to the singing.
I can't see how you won't. It
No.
doesn't matter who wins. It'll be fucked either way. Either
Yep.
way, all of it is fucked. Anyways, back to the
Back to the
singing.
human experience of singing.
The human experience. Although this is also part of the human experience, but we'll park it
Yep.
over here, put a
Mhm.
pin in it, and we'll return to something more enjoyable.
Yep.
Fucking hell. Anyways, yeah. So where was I before we went into all that shit?
You said that you were very proud of your dad because he's doing real
Yeah,
activism. Yeah, yeah.
extremely proud of him, and I was thinking, what could I do, and I started with some of my friends. We've been doing some like these cardinal points of the year. We've been doing rituals there, like so spring, autumn equinox, and solstices, and so
Mm-hmm.
on. And one of my friends there, she does a lot of that Seder singing.
Mm-hmm.
So which is just intuitive singing, really. It's no big shakes.
Mhm.
It's basically just standing around and someone starts something, and then people just chime in,
Mhm.
contribute. It could be howls, even. It doesn't even need to be singing. It's just about making noises with your
Mhm.
voice. And um, and so I was hired to go and do this kind of thing where it would be kind of a lecture talk slash workshop slash performance for a summer school at the Exeter University
Mhm.
for all the psychedelic researchers, actually,
Cool.
which was the people that are researching psychedelics and therapeutic levels and that sort of thing.
Mhm.
So these are already sort of pretty open people, so they were a good bunch to start with for sure. But yeah, I had to dive deep into the question of why. Why have we stopped singing?
Mhm.
So I had my thoughts, and some of them also turned out to be confirmed or affirmed by some of the research that I did.
Mhm.
But there's been a lot of research done, both at Berkeley. Frontiers of Psychology have done do you know Frontiers of Psychology?
Mhm.
There's a big psychology academic paper,
Mhm.
and they had done a lot of research about the kind of benefits of singing together, of communal singing. What it
Mhm.
does neurologically and physiologically and so on to people, which is all positive stuff.
Mhm.
It creates communion. It releases all kinds of endorphins. It's good for all kinds of things. It clears the throat too as
Mhm.
well. So and and at Berkeley, they had done some research into what actually was the reason why we had lost this tradition. Because if you go a couple of hundred years back in time, people would know by heart sometimes several hundred songs in
Mhm.
some areas, and they would go to the communal festivities or down to the local inn or whatever, and whenever the violin player would do like do 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 do, and then everyone would go like boom, and then everyone would know the song, right? Like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
just like, oh yeah, that's the one about the prince that goes out and gets the thing, and whatever, and
Yep.
we've lost that tradition entirely. And I was wondering why did if it's so good for people, if it's so great, if it brings so much joy, what on earth could have changed this? And of course, one of the things was industrialization,
Mhm.
naturally.
Mhm.
People moving into the cities, moving closer together but further apart, right? I mean, this is such a cliche, but it's a cliche for a reason.
Hey
Because you
man,
get into
half
these
half
little
my
cubicles.
bookshelf, half my bookshelf is like transcendental literature. So like you're literally preaching to the choir right now. So I completely agree with
Cool.
you.
No,
Yep.
I would love to hear some of your thoughts
Yep.
about it as well, since you
Mhm.
are a musicologist and you're researching this kind of
Mhm.
stuff, right?
Mhm.
And so of course, and then of course also, and this is going to sound weird for someone who wants to live off this shit, but recorded music as well is a big problem, because all of a sudden the music's this product. It's either this thing on a thing that you put on and you just sit and listen to. You don't take part in it. You just sit and listen. Or it's a band or an artist or an orchestra which is on a stage, is removed from you. It's kind of like how the church removed us from spirituality, funnily enough, right?
Mhm.
I mean,
Yep.
of course, that's a big can of worms to open. But I
Yeah.
think a lot of people would agree that when you go into a church, actually the only place you do feel some kind of spiritual connection is when people sing.
Yep.
The rest of the time, it's just some preacher talking about Matthew whatever that you
Mhm.
didn't even read yourself, and you're just like, oh yeah, that's probably what Jesus said. I better do that.
Yep.
There's no experience. There's no
Mhm.
communing with the spirit or anything like that, right? And so it's the same thing with music. We've been kind of removed from it as people in general, and you kind of have to be someone who wants to dedicate your whole life to it, and be super scared your whole life that you're not gonna make it and all that kind
Mhm.
of weird stuff in order to even enjoy music in
Yep.
the fullest way. In the fullest way, of course,
Mhm.
people do enjoy music, but I think a lot of people don't know what they're really missing.
It's a
um
pretty big problem, when I'm teaching music appreciation to undergraduates. It's one of the biggest things that I really try to hammer home is Funny enough, what you were talking about right now is one of the core aspects of ethnomusicology, right? The studying how music is culture in and of itself, and how things were
Mm,
lost when we forgot that music is. Any ethnomusicologists listening, if there are any, are going to be like, well, that's very, basic, or, it's not very profound. But, the idea that music is an activity has largely been lost and been replaced by exactly what you just said, where it's become a thing. Music
mhm.
is a thing that you buy, you put it on, you trade it, like you treat it as an object that can be owned, or one can be done better than anything else, and the better one is objectively, the only one to do, because it's an object, right? You want the best of the object. But the ethnomusicologists came up with a funny word called musicking to remind people that music is a thing that we do. And even recorded music, techno muddies this up, but music does not exist without a person making it in the first place. Like, the recorded music does not exist without someone musicking first, and the microphones just pick up that this person is doing a thing. And so you are
Yeah,
100% on, like, on a main on a main road of thought with, like, why has singing left. It's largely because we don't think of singing as like a thing that we do together anymore. It's you're trying to recreate an object that you like in a lot of
yeah,
ways.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And that's just a damn shame.
Yeah, to put it
It,
very
it,
simply and effectively, yeah, it's a damn shame.
it is really a damn shame. I noticed there was a crazy experience. I'll get back to what I did actually in my first in my first event,
Hmm.
and what I will be cultivating going forward. But I had this experience where my girlfriend and I we went down to with my dad actually. In one of the things that he does as well is that he does morning singing in Gudhjem in Bornholm, which is the
Hmm.
island I come from, where there's this ferry that goes from Gudhjem in the morning and goes to another tiny island outside called Christiansø.
Hmm.
It goes there and then it comes back in the evening. And so what they do is that they go down in the morning and they sing the ferry out with all kinds of different old Danish songs.
That's awesome.
Holy shit! We did this two mornings in a row. There were people on the boat crying.
Hmm.
They felt so great about being sung out. And we
Hmm.
have this song at the end where we sing that the ship always returns to Gudhjem and blah blah blah. There's this whole thing. It's so powerful. It's
Very.
such a tiny thing. It's such an easy thing to do. It's such a low hanging fucking fruit. But we don't do it.
Yeah.
Why don't we do it?
It
And
also
and
has to
and
do with
I think,
sensitivity. Like, we're kind of scared of being sincere in a lot of ways,
yeah.
and singing is one of the most sincere things you can do. We're
And
just
it's like
scared
if
of
you
our own
can't do it,
emotions.
I mean, if you can't do it like Tori Kelly on Instagram, then you're shit.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the kind of thing, right? Like
Mhm.
you see all these people on Instagram just doing these 1 minute things where they do like some kind of crazy thing, and it has to be that kind of thing. It has to be that impressive thing. And if
Mhm.
it's not that, then you're going to be laughed out of the thing. It's just like it's
Yep.
so misunderstood.
Mhm.
It's not about that, man. Man,
Yeah, yeah,
it's
man.
not,
It's not all about that. It's
man. It's
There's
not
something
about
so
that, man.
important about people coming together and singing together. And this is even like, I know I have plenty of students, and I also have plenty of friends where, like, they're not even necessarily religious anymore, but they'll go to specific churches where you actually sing
Just
together.
saying.
It's a
Yeah,
bigger part, because they're like, even if I'm not, wholesale Christian, I need those opportunities to actually, be in a group and sing. Um, yeah, it's
and the
just
hymns are beautiful. Some of them, at
very.
least. You know,
Yeah, that's,
very
yeah,
beautiful.
very,
You
very
know,
beautiful. So yeah,
definitely.
so these workshops.
Yeah. So what I
Mhm.
would do is that so on this is not what I would do every time, but I did that talk first, and I talked about both the benefits of singing, all the neurological stuff, and so on,
Mhm.
and then also why the loss of singing, and so I did that, and then I did a workshop where I would do different singing exercises,
Mhm.
starting out with just being silly and just doing the silliest warm-up exercises that you can do with the specific purpose of like, if I can stand up here and go like, oh, just loosen my jaw, then you can fucking do it as well, you know?
Yeah.
You know, I've just been very important telling you all about stuff, and I'm very clever and so on. And I can also just stand like that. So then you can do it as well, which really loosens people up.
Yep.
I see. And then when everyone's doing it together, they started laughing, and you know, there's a lot of laughter with just standing around being silly, you know. And so different stretches and just getting a little bit into our bodies and out of our heads, basically stuff like that. And then I would do, we would try to growl a bit together. We would try not really growl, but just try to make some low, growly, gravelly kind of noises, you know. And we would start just trying to tune in on each other on just one note and just like keep a drone. And then we did some call and response. And we would do the say there stuff where, you know, some people would be keeping the note, and then everyone would close their eyes in order to just, you know, not get self-conscious. And then I would just go around and like tap people whenever, like, and send them off into their own journey, you know, if you get what I mean. Like,
No,
so then when I
absolutely.
tap people, yeah, then people would just start doing it. And some people would howl, some people that maybe felt, I think they said about like, I would imagine about 30% of the people who were there were comfortable with singing. The rest were either not comfortable, some to the degree where there was one guy who was studying all this research, and he was actually an ex-Marine with PTSD, and he had never sung in his entire life. Never. He couldn't even remember having sung in the bathroom, that kind of stuff. And he said this was the first time he'd ever sung, and he was. I mean, there were people that got into like tears and stuff like that rolling down their cheeks and stuff. And then what I would do is I would make them just go on the hum as well. And then I would go up to the looper with a few different instruments. I would make a little track on the spot with some beats and some nice sounds and stuff. And then we would incorporate everything we'd done into a performance, and then do a performance together, so that there was a kind of a product at the end that we all had created together. And that was fantastic. You know,
yeah, sounds like it,
man. It really was. It requires a willing host, of course, host of people. I'm willing, of course, I'm doing it, but I'm the host, but a willing host of a willing crowd, let's say. So you could say it's kind of like a more trippy version of what Jacob Collier is doing, or something like that. You know, because you know, that kind of stuff. You know.
Sorry about that, guys. So after a little bit of a technical delay, happens with this Zoom stuff, but we play the hand we're dealt with technology very often. So with the time that we have left, we are going to have Jonas, still as beautiful as ever, just with a different camera angle, start talking about what he's been up to in terms of some new Nebala stuff. So let's get into that, man. So what do you got cooking for us that you can tell us about?
So yeah, we touched upon it a little bit. So like me and Gilly, like I said, have been trying to. I mean, we've been recording a lot of stuff, and so we have a lot of a good starting point to create to finish the album. And then what happened, as fate would have it, was that I sort of was doing this thinking that I was still working with Binors, but I'm not. Like, so what happened was that they had to basically, for lots of different reasons that I will not get into, I will just say that the split with Binors was amicable.
So welcome back to the third angle. Jonas just started talking about Binors. So the last thing that I heard from you was that it was an amicable split, and that's just how things work with these labels and all of that sort of stuff. So you can pick it up from there if you'd like. That it was an amicable split, and just go from there.
For sure, yeah. So it was an amicable split, and but what it just kind of made me think was that okay, I have to think about this in a completely different way. And I also was going to work with someone in Norway probably, but that kind of didn't really seem like the thing I wanted to do at that point. And Christopher Juul,
Hmm.
from Heilung. We had started like for a long time, like after when I split from Heilung, you know how things go. You just
Hmm.
don't really, you know, see each other that much or whatever for
Life
whatever
happens. Yep.
reasons. Life happens, work and all that kind of stuff. And Krista and I had sort of started to sort of talking again and doing some stuff together, just hanging out basically.
Hmm.
And I thought, hey man, I just like ask him, hey, would you like to? Could it be fun? Could that be a fun thing to do? And he was like, fuck yeah, man.
Awesome.
Um, so Christopher and I are actually working together again, which feels really, really wonderful. It feels like coming full circle in a
Hmm.
way.
Because you guys are old
Christopher
friends,
and I,
aren't you?
very old
Yeah,
friends.
yeah,
Yeah, we've known each other since we were 18 or something like
yeah.
that, and
So you
I'm
go
40.
back a little bit.
We go back 22 years. Yeah, which is a while.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, yeah, so we decided to finish up this album together, which is something I'm super happy about because I've always been a great like I've always admired Christopher's
Hmm.
production skills, his ability to basically find the
Hmm.
nugget in the sound and then really expand that and augment that
Hmm.
and that's something that I'm actually, you know, weirdly not good at. Yeah.
Whole different skill set. Whole different skill set.
I'm just so much more chaotic than he
Yeah,
is. You know,
and
it's
that's why
just
we
how it
love you.
is.
That's why we
Thank you,
love you.
James. Thank you so much. Yeah, no, and of course, I wouldn't change that. I'm
Hmm.
not saying there's anything bad about that, but it's
Hmm.
just it's great when you have two forces like someone like Christopher who can really crystallize things and me who's just you know all over the place. It somehow works really well together. We always have worked really well together. Also in the past, before there was anything that was called Heilung and stuff like that,
Hmm.
we did a project together, and it was always really awesome to work with him. So that feels really good for me. It feels like a was it Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young song? You know, like it's been a long time coming. You know,
Hmm.
and
Yeah, yeah.
it's so
It's nice
so yeah,
reconnecting with old friends, and even further than reconnecting, like actually, doing the activities you used to do together, right? It's just
absolutely,
it makes you feel like
absolutely.
a kid again, but then you're 40, and then, like
And then you're
it's a
40.
weird,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, and you know, so it's just great to work with him, and you know, we're thinking about some other things that we want to do as well, but I shouldn't even have said that.
No, you're
But
good.
okay.
Just pump the
uh,
brakes, and then we'll.
take a little sip of coffee.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, so
and
I guess
yeah,
where if I can direct the conversation towards something more pointed, right? It would be
yeah,
so you're working with an
please.
old friend again. You've got all these creative energies from working with Geely. You've got all these things recorded and all of that. And you were talking about what you have done and sort of what you wish you had done differently from the last album, but you played the hand you were dealt again. Um,
Yep,
but you have already talked a little bit about you want it to be a more cohesive experience. But I
yeah.
would love to hear what else in terms of what you want, or sort of like where your head is in terms of what your goal is, or sort of what you want to work towards with the new album.
Well, I mean, there's the technical part of it, which is kind of segueing into the Kickstarter thing, because
Hmm.
I'm launching a Kickstarter now.
Hmm.
I'm literally just waiting for them to give me the confirmation, and you know, it's a go, and I press the button, and I'm launching a Kickstarter in order to really take control of this one.
Hmm.
Because with the first album, as first albums do, it's a learning experience,
Hmm.
and I learned a lot from doing that. And it feels to me a bit like a blessing that I'm not with Binors anymore,
Hmm.
because does it gives me the opportunity to do things exactly how I want to do them myself. I don't
Yeah.
have to talk to anyone. I'm not beholden to anyone.
Hmm.
That does, however, of course, require that I have some really nice souls around me that want to support this project, you
Yep.
know, and come along for the journey, which is
Hmm.
also what is great about Kickstarter because you kind of invite people in. You
Hmm.
know, I there's a little video there that tells about the story. There's a little text that gives people more about what it's actually going to be about, and then there's obviously these different tiers that
Hmm.
people can support the project with, where
Hmm.
they get exclusive material and so on and so forth. And it really is a kind of call to action to people. It's
Mhm.
like, hey, if you do feel that this brings value, you
Mhm.
can actually help me now make sure that this vision comes to life, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
and I would be eternally grateful for that, you know. So
Mhm.
it feels like inviting a lot of people along on it. So it becomes like a huge community built thing,
Mhm.
which is stuff that I love just in general.
Yeah,
So
it harmonizes very well, pun fully intended, with
yeah,
what you were just talking about with the communal singing stuff.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. So so that's what I hope to do. And I have, you know, done different things like bringing on a visual artist,
Mhm.
a really good friend of mine called Sarah, who's incredible, who also was the editor for the video that we did.
Yeah, is this Sarah Bogue?
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
So she's going to be the one really taking care of the visual stuff. Of course, her and I in tandem, of course. But like, there's one person doing that. While on the first album, I had like three different, and I was
Yeah.
talking to this guy and that guy, and it ended up being the third guy, and then that guy just made a thing and delivered it, and there's like, now you have to get other people to come and meddle with that thing, and it was just
Yeah.
a mess,
Mhm.
you know. And great that it was a mess, because again, that's how you learn. But
Yeah, yeah.
now, you know, doing things really, really differently, really trying to make the whole thing a cohesive experience, not
Mhm.
just the music, but the visuals, the videos, everything becoming one expression,
Mhm.
which is something I'm really excited about doing. Really, really excited.
Awesome. Yeah, because remember last time you were on, you talked about how even though you've got this Nordic thing going on from Northmen, and you played at Midgardsblot, and you're definitely your history with Heilung, you definitely have that Nordic aesthetic in some ways, but in a lot of other ways, you wanted to get to something more deeper than that, like something more
Mm,
elementally
yeah,
human.
true.
And this was 2 years ago, so you might have a completely different opinion
No,
at this point.
no,
But
it's
like,
the same.
yeah, I'm sort of interested, I guess, in how you are continuing to experiment or explore with expressing that musically, like that idea
Yeah.
of expressing something elementally human. You already talked about instruments, like you're really spanning the world here in terms of instruments that you're using. But is there anything else like that you've been keeping in the back of your mind as an artist? How can you
Yeah.
express something more elementally human?
That's a fucking great question. And because that's no, because literally that is what this album is going to be
Hmm.
all about, like
Yep.
in its very essence, because this album is a dedication to rites of passage.
Okay.
That's going to be the name of the album as well. That's already
Hmm.
known. Those kind of things are already known. This is an exploration of what it means to be human in a sonic way, really.
Hmm.
So both in terms of instrumentation, using instruments literally from all over the world,
Hmm.
and both ancient and new
And
ones,
plastic ukuleles.
and plastic ukuleles from Tiger Shop. No, but it's perfect actually that we
No, it
brought
really
that
is.
one
Yep.
in. And then it's just a journey. It's a journey from birth to death,
Hmm.
going through these different cardinal points in life. And in terms of the textual material and concept and so on, I'm using everything. I'm
Hmm.
using it's everything from Indian chants to even a song, a nursery rhyme from my own island,
Hmm.
to Christian mysticism, to stuff from Marcus Aurelius meditations.
That is so cool.
Really, it's really everything. And hopefully you know, because this one took a lot of research, and this time I was thinking about bringing someone on to help me research like I did on the first album with Matthias, which
Yeah,
was
yeah, yeah,
great. I
yeah.
absolutely loved doing that with Matthias, and
Hmm.
and it was also proper to do, because
Hmm.
that was like diving deep into one sort of niche thing.
Hmm.
But here I'm allowed to be broad, and I'm allowed to be to just, you know, go with everything that I feel kind of tries to communicate this vision in the best way possible.
Hmm.
So hopefully that's what's going to happen, that the whole thing is going to be cohesive from the sonic soundscapes to the meat of it, basically.
Yeah, I love that you're doing this rite of passage thing, because there's this is a hell of a coincidence. I'm just noticing that more of my students lately are actually talking about rites of passage in a way where they're sort of acknowledging that slowly over time, just like singing, rites of passages have disappeared
Yeah.
from life. And I had a student come to my office hours to talk to me about just like how he's just felt like his whole life he's just floated without anything marking these things, these
Yeah.
moments in life. How he said coming to college was his first feeling like he had a rite of passage, but there was no ceremony because you get driven up there, they kick you out of the car like goodbye honey, have fun, and then the
Yep.
closest thing you get to a rite of passage is your first alcohol poisoning. You know what I mean? Like that's the first thing that college students get as a rite of passage.
True.
And so I think that that's also probably, that's a trend I've just noticed with many students and many people noticing that there aren't those communal things. And I'm wondering how well that specific concept you're going for is going to resonate with people.
Well, I mean, I really hope so. I mean, Jung had this concept of the pure eternus,
Mm-hmm.
the eternal child, which he believed that all people in our modern society had actually become. He was very focused on the pure eternus, which is, of course, the male one, but there's also puella eterna, which is the female one.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think just to touch on this very briefly, I
Mm-hmm.
think for men, we don't have rites of passages anymore. Like
Mm-hmm.
in the olden times, you'd be thrown out in the forest for 3 days, survive, and if you can come back, you're good, and there would be all these other kind of things, but it wouldn't be just that. It's also your birth would be marked in a way. It's also your first ability to do something would be marked in a certain
Mm-hmm.
way. And then there was the big one, of course, of like really stepping into the tribe. But then there was also, marriage would be something that would, or you're becoming a warrior or whatever it is that you are becoming, there would be a marking of that, and there'd probably be a song with that as well,
Mm-hmm.
and then your first child would also be sung into this world, and there would be a marking of that, and there was this very close attention to the cycles of yourself and nature and that sort of thing, and really marking these different things. And with women, you could say, I've heard some people say that women have natural rites of passages in that they get their period
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
in that they give birth. But still, we have to remember one thing. How many women can say that when they got their period, there was some kind of marking of that in a wholesome way where they really were really welcomed beautifully in by a community of women that could welcome, hey, you're now a woman, and now we celebrate your sacred blood coming out, and you're
Mm-hmm.
now have this amazing power within you, and
Mm-hmm.
that sort of thing. We just did that for my daughter
Mm-hmm.
not long ago. Thankfully, I was with my girlfriend and Nicoletta actually.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Unfortunately, her mother wasn't there, but that
Mm-hmm.
happens when you're divorced. But
Yep.
let's not get into that. But we really did do a ceremony, and we're going to have another ceremony with her mother as well, where we're going to do another ceremony for her stepping into the role as a woman now, and
Yep.
making that a beautiful transition, and also birth. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you get into the thing. I know that in the States you don't even have midwives unless you have to pay out of your
Yep.
ass for it, right? And
Yeah.
you don't even have a
Yep.
midwife to help you. It's like
Mm-hmm.
you're getting into this crazy hospital. It's lights everywhere. The doctor saying, "Better fucking put that baby out, or we got to push you full with something and get that thing out, and let's get on to the next thing. Let's get me the money. Thank you. Bye bye." That kind of thing. There's no sacredness to it at
Yep.
all.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe women do have these natural rites of passage, but they're sure not as hell not given any real opportunity to really
Undersold, because like I
celebrate
know
it.
like when,
Yeah.
usually the way that women are greeted that way is like, well, I had my first period, and then the parents go, well, shit. Like,
Oh
you know,
shit.
like, God damn it. All right. Like
God
there's,
damn it.
not to speak for women on my own part, but just, I know women, right? Like I have friends that are chicks, but like, that's the thing that they tell these stories, and it's just like,
Yeah, they
how do
do.
and you listen and you're like, oh, how anticlimactic that seems, right? But I think this all blends into that bigger message that you're getting to here, about this lack of rite of passage. Because
Totally.
I don't know if you're familiar with, my friend Chris Welsh, he does the music project Sun and Moon Dance, but he what he
I
does
know the
in
name. Yeah, I
this,
think I'm friends with him
yeah,
online.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
he's also gregarious. He's just not, he's also shy. But like the big thing that I'm getting at here is that he does these rites of passages for boys in North Carolina. It's sort of this
Fantastic.
almost an equivalent of a
Amazing.
summer camp, but they're like, you're gonna sit at this fire and you're gonna tend to this fire and you're not eating until we bring you food. So it teaches these
Yeah.
usually these young men who already have disciplinary issues, you know what I mean? And they get
Mm-hmm.
sent to these things as a way to be like, this is your rite of passage. This is your moment where you can really start again in a lot of
Christopher
ways.
Juul's dad does that, or I don't know if he does that anymore, but he used to do that as well.
Yeah,
He would
that's
take these unruly kids out in nature and make them fucking do some shit, you know?
in the
And
hills of North Carolina. It's like you know,
yeah.
Mothman's gonna get you. Uh,
Oh yeah, oh yeah. That's right. Fucking hell,
I
yeah.
know that's West Virginia, but close enough.
Close enough.
If any Appalachians want to come at me, whatever. Yeah, but no,
Appalachians.
yeah, this has really been great, Jonas. I hate that this is one of the rare times where I have a time limit on the conversation. But
Yeah,
you're always welcome back. But I guess the last question I want to
definitely.
ask is, just in the last month, Fire in the Mountains was re-announced. Are you going to be there? We would love to see him.
Oh God, you've just touched
Is
upon
that a
something
can of worms?
terrible.
No, I'm sorry.
No, because
If
the
you
thing
want,
is, dude, I want to come with all my heart.
yeah, yeah,
I want to come with all my heart. I'm just in a crazy dilemma
yeah.
because there's a festival in Sweden called Borderland, which I was supposed to
Okay.
attend for 2 years in a row.
Hmm.
And fucking, I saw this, and I haven't even spoken to Alex about this. I
Hmm.
haven't even dared. He's probably gonna see this before I dare talk to him because they fucking put it right when it was on the same dates.
Hmm.
And I was like, I'm definitely going for Fire in the Mountain. No. Let's see. The
Yeah,
ink hasn't dried on that yet
yeah. The
because
way
I
you acted that
wanna.
out was beautiful.
It really sucks, but I
Yep.
really, really want to go, and I'm gonna figure it out. Fucking fuck it.
Awesome. Yeah, because man,
Yeah.
I'd love to see it would also be poetic for me because that's where I met you the first time.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's
You were,
right.
yeah, I just remember I was
But
like,
this time I
who
won't. This time I won't be cooking for you. This time though, I will
it'll be
do
fine.
something else.
You've earned the week off, right?
Thanks,
If
man.
you do come.
Thanks.
Yeah. All right, man. Well,
Let's see. Let's see.
yeah, yeah. So
Um,
Jonas, again, I hate that I have a time thing today, and also coupled with the fact that we had a tech issue. But as I said,
yeah.
you are always welcome back. But if people want to learn more, and want to especially follow the Kickstarter, where can they find you and where can they do so?
So the best place to also hear about the Kickstarter is going to be Instagram,
Mhm.
definitely. So just Jonas I mean, sorry, at Nebala Music on Instagram. That's the best place where you can learn about the Kickstarter, which is going to launch. Like I don't know when you're airing this, but
Within
it's
the
yeah,
next week. Yep.
probably so it'll probably be launched at that
Hmm.
time
Cool.
when you air it. So just follow Nebala Music on Instagram. There I'll post out the all the updates. I'll post some reels about it
Hmm.
and tell more about what people can get and that sort of thing from supporting the album and so on. And then yeah, we need to get some energy into this project and then I'm gonna do my very best to create the most perfectly culturally appropriated piece of art that I can possibly muster.
So yeah, I already can foreshadow the next time you're on, it's going to be to address accusation. You know what I mean? It's going to be
Yeah.
your apology tour. I shouldn't have used that plastic ukulele. But
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm definitely shitting on West African music by using a plastic ukulele and a dun dun. I
yeah,
mean, come on,
I love
like.
it. I love it because and I don't know if you're even familiar with this, but I assist teach the African dance class that's here at CU Boulder. So every Monday
Oh,
night, I'm
really?
teaching kids sogo and djembe and stuff like that. From
What?
yeah, no. So there we have an incredible guy. Maputo Menza is in Denver, and he's played with Umo Sangari. He's played with Bella Fleck, and he's played African drumming in all these different projects, and so I'm very fortunate. I get to
Amazing.
learn from him every Monday night.
Wow, you're
I'm
lucky.
yeah, it's really cool. So I'm also really
I
looking.
gotta say also just to even like try to like preempt any of that
Yeah, yep.
stuff, you know.
Please
The
do.
thing is, if people are gonna come and say it's culture appropriated to something to do with India, my child is half Indian, so fuck
Mhm.
off. I have traveled, you know, I've traveled in India, the length and breadth of it, and I've never heard any Indian take any offense
Mhm.
to me wanting to learn about Indian music or to
Mhm.
sing in an Indian way. It's quite the opposite, actually.
Yep.
Gilly was taught by a Senegalese master. We're dedicating one of the tracks to his Senegalese dead master because Senegalese master because he died
Mhm.
not long ago. And Gilly, when we were recording this one track, when we're done with it and we were listening to it, Gilly started crying
Mhm.
because he was missing his master. So it's just I'm getting angry before
No.
anything's even been said, but that's because it is such bullshit, you
Mhm.
know, to talk about this. We want to share culture.
Mhm.
Culture's always been meant to be shared. It's not a thing.
Mhm.
It's not a thing that you can hold on to. It's if it's not in constant flux,
Mhm.
it's nothing at all. It's a dusty tome on a shelf somewhere,
Mhm.
you know,
I
for
had
God's
a
sakes.
I had a very specific situation where so I've also done Japanese ensemble and I've also done gamelan. Just part of being
Nice.
an ethnomusicology student is
Yep.
you have to help teach these things so you understand different music cultures. And I remember there was this one, I cannot remember the name of it, but there was a specific gamelan drum that actually works as the metronome pretty much. So it's the actually
Oh yeah.
it just looks like a big nipple.
Okay.
And so I went up to him after class because this was the drum that I was mostly playing, and I said, "Am I allowed to get one of these myself?" And he was so confused. I was like, "I just want to like ask permission if I could play this." And he was like, "Yeah, I'll get you one." Like, and he was like, "Why are you
What are
asking me
you
this?" And
talking
because that's just
about?
how I've been trained, right? But and I think it is
Yeah.
important to have a healthy self consciousness about how you were doing things, but the days of like 10 years ago when like if that video of you ripping that fucking djembe went up on Instagram, you'd get mauled
Mm.
by a bunch of
Yeah.
BuzzFeed readers.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think those days are going where people
I
are
hope
accepting
so.
the fact that it's not black and white. It's not
Yeah.
straightforward. You can't put caution tape around culture.
No.
Um, so yeah, I there's an important conversation to be had, but I think ultimately what you're gonna I'm looking forward to what you're going to do, especially because what I will end this on is if you don't follow Jonas for whatever reason, you really should just for the fucking awesome djembe licks that he posts every now and again of you ripping the drum. I live for those things. When you put was it which track was it? Was it Hamino
I think
Hipia?
no, it was
You overlaid the djembe over that high lung track.
it was I was thinking it was Gal Galder, but it wasn't that fast. No, it was El Dancerin. El
I'll
Dancerin.
dance her in, yeah, because
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
rituals when the fire is hitting the shield, yeah, no. So
Yep,
it
yep,
was that
yep.
I remember I watched that clip like 3 times in a row, and I cannot get
Nice.
it because it was so good. But anyway,
Thanks, man.
yeah, of
Thanks.
course, Jonas, it's been so awesome having you, and definitely being able to give you an opportunity to talk more about this album because, as I said at the beginning, so many people are still wearing Nebala shirts all these years later. So it's clear that people are wanting to hear more
Ah,
from you, and I'm really excited for
awesome.
what you have in store for us, man.
Thanks, man. And it's all about just the very end of it. I just want to say, when it comes to culture, it's all about reverence, man, and respect and love.
Thank you for saying what I should have said.
I mean,
It's about
it really,
respect and reverence. Yep.
like it is, like, of course, don't shit all over culture and
Yep.
talk things down. But if it's done with respect and reverence and love, which this really is, I mean,
Hmm.
then just let go of all these weird preconceived notions you have and just listen,
Hmm.
and you will be able to hear that 100%.
Beautiful, because that's one of the difficult things. You can't really communicate that much respect, obviously, through music. So a lot of people would just hear or see you doing these things and
Mm.
make a lot of assumptions, right? because
Right.
you can't as easily discern from a video or from a recording, oh, this guy respects it. You would need to be trained in that tradition to be able to hear that through the music. Anyone else
Sure.
would just see white guy playing a djembe. In Boulder, that is very common, but anyone else, anywhere else in the world, they see that and be like, is this okay? But no, man, I'm really glad that you brought up the respect and reverence point.
I
So,
think you can see that if the guy looks like he's really enjoying playing the djembe,
yep. And
you
you have
know.
that simplicity of the spectrum as well. Yeah.
I think it can be that simple, because I was wearing a kimono while playing it, so I mean,
You are just a big old pot of gumbo. That is what you are, Jonas. You are just a big old
big
pot of
old
gumbo.
gumbo, just everything mixed together, all the good stuff.
I love it.
Hopefully,
Hey man, well
yeah,
yeah, as I said, it's been great having you. Stick around after I stop the recording, all right?
I will, man.
All
All
right, cool
right.
man. You take care, all right?